Welcome everybody. This is Miko Tacting Friends here again with another ESO masterclass, and here with me is our special guest host, Wolfstar. um,
Hi, I'm Wolfstar07. I am the guild leader of Dragon's Nest Thievery Company, and we like to put out little workshops every month of different subjects, and this month is about beginners to ESO. You know, the kinds of things that you wish you knew when you were new that you know now, the lessons that you learned the hard way. Maybe you are new and you want to just figure your way around the game. So that's what we're doing tonight.
yeah.
So I started playing way back in what I lovingly refer to as the dark days. This was pre-1 Tamriel. This was also before there were even champion points. They used to use vet ranks back then, which apparently, from what I hear, was harder. I never made it that far at that time. But I didn't join a guild immediately. I actually didn't join any guilds when I first started playing. I played for maybe 6 months and then I took a break because I was playing by myself, and that's kind of, it's boring and it's really hard trying to get around and do anything when you're playing solo. But I remember one thing that would have helped if somebody had told me back then, was about fishing. A couple of things, actually. Like, first was how to fish. Like, I figured out how to use a bait, although I didn't know that the type of bait you used mattered. But I figured out how to, you assign bait and then you cast the line. But I did not know how to, like, pull in your line, or rather, I knew how to do that because, the E button was still lit up, but because it's lit up, I thought you were supposed to pull it in right away. And so I would do that, and then my line would snap and I wouldn't get anything. And this was very frustrating for me because I could see other people around me, they're getting the animation of, when there's something tugging on your line, and I wasn't. So I was confused about how come everyone else around me was not having a hard time with it, but I was. And then finally, I think one time, like, I cast my line, and I probably delayed by maybe a couple seconds. This time, I got that little animation, and then I pulled in the line and actually had something on it. So yeah, that's my story of learning the hard way how to fish. What kinds of stuff did you go through when you were new, Miko?
Yeah. Well, to build onto the thing with the fishing, there is add-ons to help you pull it up. I don't know if they were available at that time or not, but anyways.
Probably not.
I started ESO. I want to say February 2017, and I joined DNTC February 2018. So I've been with you for a little over a year. When I first started, um, actually, when I first bought the game, I didn't know it was an online game. I thought it was just like a DLC to Skyrim or something like that.
Mhm.
uh, I found it on the Walmart clearance shelf, and then I installed it, started playing it, and one of the first things I do is I end up finding somebody doing the same thing I was doing at the time, and so we became friends, started questing together, uh, got a guild, and started playing. Like, as it's an online game, uh, it's usually good to be able to find somebody that's interested in the same things you're doing and play with them. It's just more fun to play with people than by yourself. Like,
Yeah, for sure. And then, as you guys learn stuff, you can share it with each other.
exactly. and that's what we did. Like that's how I actually first became a werewolf because he became a werewolf, and then he's like, oh, I can butt you, and I became a werewolf. I love being a werewolf. Yeah, you're a vamp.
Yeah, I do main a vampire, much to my dismay. But yeah, it's just one of those personal choices that you make. Some builds will say that you have to do it, and it's really up to you whether you want to do that or not. But let's actually get started on the kinds of things that would probably be helpful for people starting out. The first thing when you start out that maybe you don't realize is you can adjust your UI to suit your playstyle. You can do this if you go into settings and then go to gameplay, I think it is, and you can do all sorts of options that way. You can turn off, you can turn off grass, you can auto loot, turn off your helmet so you don't see it, you always see your head. You can change your keybinds from the defaults, if you want to turn off your UI to take a picture, if you want to change the point of view from first person to third person, if you want to adjust your AoE placement, because by default I think it's set to automatic or something, but if you want to change it so that way you throw it down, you only have to cast it once instead of twice like some AoEs require. You can do stuff like that.
I always
And then
have
when
it
you
on
get
the twice to beat it. For me, I always have it on the twice. I click it twice because if I don't, for me it's just easier so I can tell, you know. Well, anyway, sorry for disturbing you.
I used to do that, but then so when I started trying to improve my DPS and I was practicing on a combat dummy, I would hit it once and then I would move on to my next skill, and of course it would not go off like a volley. And then so somebody told me about that, because if I don't remember to hit it twice, then I just won't do it. So you kind of get into the habit of figuring out how to accurately aim, I guess, if you turn that off. So that way you only have to do it once. But that's the kind of thing that comes with practice, I think. And then when you get add-ons, a lot of times they'll have to assign keybinds to that as well. Like if you're going to use something like combat metrics, or if you want to use one of my favorite add-ons is essential housing tools, so you'll have to assign a keybind to that to open it up, and a few others. Not every add-on that you add will require a keybind because it's just going to be, imported into your map or whatever. But
like things that have its own like pop-up screen.
Yeah.
That's what you'll have to assign a keybind for.
Yeah, port to friends is one that I like to use, and so I have a keybind to open up the little hub that saves everybody. Like I have a few people whose names and houses that I've saved into the hub, like that one, yeah. So you'll have to assign a keybind to open it up. Then you can just automatically port to people, or to their homes rather. So yeah. And after you get your UI set up the way that you want it, you can adjust the color, the lighting, all that too. And then you're probably going to want to focus on the kind of gear that you're wearing. So the way that the game works now, every character you create, you don't actually unlock a skill line until if it's a skill, it's not until you make a kill. And if it's gear, you have to slot 3 of that same weight, so you have to have 3 heavy pieces, and then also make a kill to unlock that skill. Which is a little silly. I don't really like it that way. Back in the dark days, everything just it wasn't unlocked, but you could actually see it all if you go to your skill menu. You could actually see every skill line that was available, which made it easier, I felt, to plan. nowadays you kind of have to know that it's there so that way you can do whatever you need to unlock it. So if you want to wear all light armor, I mean, as long as you slot 3 of them and then make a kill, it's automatically unlocked. And then if you just, as long as you keep a piece of light armor, even if you're not wearing the rest of your armor isn't light, as long as you keep a piece of light on while you're doing stuff, then light armor will continue to level.
Yeah, but
and it's
it
the
has
same.
to be unlocked first, right? And then you can only
Correct.
have 1 piece, and then it will level up from you having 1 piece.
Correct. So you have to slot 3 initially and make a kill, and that unlocks it. And it's the same with weapons. You know, you have to make a kill when you use the weapon.
Yeah.
And then all of your class skills.
It could also,
So you'll want to make sure.
It could also unlock by reading a book. Like,
Yep.
like if you're a STAM tune, for example, and you run across a book for destruction staff, you'll actually unlock that skill.
Yeah.
won't gain
So
anything
reading
from
books
it.
is useful.
Yeah. Plus, it raises your mage's guild skill line.
If it's the purple books, it'll
Yeah.
raise your mage's guild skill line. If it's just some other random book, it will raise the associated skill line, like he was saying, destruction staff. If there's a book about cooking, then it will probably raise your provisioning skill by 1 level. Yeah, and you also have to make sure that you slot your class skills as soon as you can. And keep those slotted, even if you don't want to use it, because sometimes you might decide, you know, as a Night Blade, like, I'm not really into being an assassin, so what do I need to slot this killer's blade for? Or whatever the base skill is, I don't remember.
Yeah.
So you don't slot that, and you only level up the other 2 class lines, and then later on you decide, well, this would have been useful to have after all. Now you have 2 class lines that might be at level 50, and then you have 1 and you can't even use this. You unlock those as you level it. So slot skills from all of your class lines, and then just keep it on your bar as you can, and then to help level it, so that way later on you're not dealing with the pain of being, you know, like level 45 and you have, or even, you know, up at CP level and you have a skill which is considered very basic and yet it's only like level 4. You haven't even unlocked the morph yet. Research. In ESO, you want to start your research immediately. I know not everybody wants to be a crafter, it's not for everyone, and that's fine. I mean, you don't have to be able to craft your own gear. Plenty of other people can craft it for you, assuming you even wear crafted gear. But you do want to be able to transmute items. And this is, you know, this is when you take a piece of gear and you change it from one trait to another. And only you can transmute gear that you wear, because that, you know, that binds it to your account. You can't trade it with other people. So you want to be able to transmute items, and the only way to do that is by having the new whatever trait you want to change it to already researched on that tune.
Hi, Dr.
But
Squishy.
but keep in mind that research takes longer per trait you learn. So the first trait takes 6 hours to complete researching, and if you decide to research something else within that same item, it's usually going to be 12 hours, but it kind of depends on what, you know, your passives and whether you're subscribed. And I'll go into that more later on. So if you start your research immediately, it's only going to help you in the long run, and it'll be less of a grind later on.
I mean, like, if you want to start researching or start crafting like a year down the road, you already got most of your traits researched. You know?
Yep.
Because you never know what you're going to want to do with your character down the road.
Yeah, I mean, people's plans change. I never intended to be have a vampire and doing endgame content. but that's what I do now.
I never imagined I was gonna do trials either, and now I do them.
Yeah, I never thought I was going to be at that point, but I can do them, and I can do them on vet with a few of my characters, actually. So, it's prepping. A lot of it's about prepping for stuff that maybe you're not interested in now, but eventually you might change your mind.
I have yet to do a vet trial. I don't
They're
know.
no joke.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready yet. Like, but it could be surprising. Like, I didn't think I was ready for to heal those vet dungeons, but we did a pretty good job.
Yeah. Push yourself and try something new in the game, and you might discover that you actually like it. So you also, with the new level up advisor that ZOS has, you get a free mount. I want to say it's at level 10.
Yep.
If you don't already have if you don't already have a mount. I noticed that they do not give that to you if you have one, or maybe I just had the mount that they were giving out.
Yeah,
I don't know. Oh, that reminds me. Back in the dark days, the horses, those different colors weren't for cosmetics. It was actually because one horse, had all of the stam for, if you're going to be in combat so you don't get unseated easily. One horse allowed you to carry extra baggage space. One horse was faster. And then there might have been one horse just to look pretty, which cost a lot, of course. So that's... And then they eventually, apparently, by the time I actually got around to being able to afford a horse, but expensive back then, I think I bought the cheap one, and by that point they had made it so all of the horses and mounts could do all, stam, speed, and extra baggage. And I think that's also the same horse that they give out for the level up, and so I didn't get a free horse. I'm upset.
Plus, if you pre-order new chapters, usually you'll end up with a mount for free. Like, when I pre-ordered Morrowind, and I got that weird Nyx Ox thing.
Yeah.
It kind of just looks like a giant spider, in my opinion.
I think it looks like a giant flea, but yeah.
Yeah, a spider flea, yeah. It's just the legs that reminds me of it, but the face does look like a flea.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But when you get a mount, and it's not, Tamriel has more than just horses. There are also stench cats and dwarven spiders and flea-looking bugs and stuff like that. When you get one, though, you'll want to start training on it right away. You'll go to a stable master, and you can do it once a day. You can buy one of the riding lessons, which I mentioned was going to be bag space, speed, or stamina. To get max level is going to be 60 on each of them. You're going to want to do all 3 of them. But I'd say probably the more important ones would be to do speed or bag space first, because bag space is at a bit of a premium. It's cheaper, technically, to level bag space through your horse, but since you can do it only one at a time, versus when you buy a pack, you can level 10 immediately, it takes longer, of course. But this is only after buying your first pack from the pack merchant. After that, it becomes more cost effective, but take longer to do it through the stable master. And then you just did speed today, so that's good. Then, if you want to actually be able to use your horse, you have to go into your collections menu, which the default keybind is U. You can change this if you want. And then you can select your mount. You have to hover over it or right click it, and then select, make active. I think it is. Set active. And then you'll be able... And then the keybind to call it is defaulted to H. And then you can call it and mount up. if you hit H again, I think you dismount.
Yep. Or if you're on the mount and you click the attack button, or if you click the block button, you also
Oh, yeah.
dismount.
Yep. Horse speed, like I said, the maximum for each of these skills is 60. But if you're leveling up speed, you're not going to notice a difference until you, like, the increments of 20. So if you put in, like, 1 through 19, you're not going to notice a difference in the horse speed for those first 19 days. But when you level it up to 20, then all of a sudden you notice you get a burst of speed when you're running. And then you won't see another burst of speed until you get to 40, and then again when you finally max it at 60 is when the horse will be the fastest. This is non-combat pets. You also make them active from that collections menu. You open up collections and instead choose non-combat pets, and then if you want one to follow you around all the time, you might have many to choose from or none. And then you'll do the same thing, or right click, set active.
Like, got 25 non-combat pets.
I don't know how many I have.
I have 9 mounts. And of course, shit tons of mementos. And you know my favorite memento, right?
I don't think so.
The mud ball.
Oh, yeah.
You hate it so much.
I do. You can quick slot mementos, by the way, so that way you don't have to open up your collections and cast it like this way. But you know what? I'm not going to share that trick with everybody because I don't want more people slotting mud balls and throwing them at me.
I'll find somebody else real quick and throw a mud ball around. There's actually nobody around me.
So we were talking about, well, we didn't exactly talk about builds, but we did talk about stuff that, skills to use later on. Builds aren't that important at lower levels because, you're level 4, you're not going to have stuff unlocked. That's just how it works. But if you're planning to maybe do dungeons or, group content, I would advise you to go and build a rebuild that you think you would enjoy and you can work toward, by seeing what kind of skills you'll need and seeing what skills you need to leave on your bar so that way you can, level up and unlock other ones. The level up advisor gives you a respec scroll somewhere around level 40, somewhere in the 40s, I don't remember where. But I think it would probably be more efficient just to have a plan because ZOS likes to change stuff. They change racial passives, they change what skills do, and suddenly a skill that you had that no longer works or it doesn't work the way that it used to and you don't want to use it anymore. So you can save the respec scroll for those cases when they decide to screw you over. We touched a little bit on crafting earlier. You can, you don't have to specialize in any one craft. I assume other games you do, from what I've heard. But in this, in ESO, you can max out your blacksmithing and your clothing and your jewelry. You don't have to focus on just one and only be able to do one. You can do all of them if you want.
And even if you're not a crafter, it's still good to get certain passives, like on provisioning, for example. Like get the gourmet passive because it adds minutes adds 20 minutes to the food that you eat. And if you do any drinks, get the connoisseur one. It adds minutes to that. And like with blacksmithing, you can get metal extraction. So when you go to decon stuff, you'll get powerful tempers, and you can like make money off of that or upgrade your gear.
Mm-hmm.
And same with
And
clothing.
alchemy.
Yep.
If you go to alchemy, there's the medicinal use. You know, it lasts longer too.
And then there's also the snake blood. It reduces the duration of negative effects and poison potions by 50%. Like, remember, I showed you a poison, or I showed you a potion. There was a positive stat and a negative stat, but the negative stat said 0%, and it said 0% because of this passive. The snake blood passive.
Okay.
After we had that conversation, I looked it up and found out why. So that's the reason why. Like, there's for snake blood, on this tune I have 0 out of 3, but if I had 3 out of 3, it would take the negative effects off a potion completely. So that's another good passive to have.
Yeah.
So even if you're not a crafter, like decon stuff, get your skill up there so you can get the passives. Like, as you can see on my screen, I have level 50 blacksmithing, but I don't have the skill points into my metalworking, for example. Also, because I'm still trying to get skill points for this tune. This isn't my crafter. On my crafter, I have all the passives. So.
Yep. Just like with crafting, the in-game guilds, you know, like Fighters Guild, Mages Guild, Thieves Guild, you don't have to, you know, just choose one of them. You can be in all of them. And a lot of the guilds will have skills that you'll find useful. Like if you go to the Thieves Guild.
Thieves Guild, yep. Right, it's up there.
You know, you'll have like Swiftly Forgotten, which is really useful if you happen, for some reason, to get a bounty, either accidentally or not. You know, you'll be able. It'll decrease faster if you don't. And so if you go to the Fighters Guild, rather, there'll be actual skills there rather than just passives.
What is the
Fighters Guild?
For Thieves Guild, like the Time the Escape one, I have yet to actually get that on any of my characters, but I've watched YouTube videos about it, and I just don't have a high enough Thieves Guild yet. I didn't do all the quests to get the passive. That's how you get the Thieves Guild level up, is by doing the Thieves Guild quests. But I want that Time the Escape one because like it says, it gives you the foot pad, and you can escape much easier.
Which I've seen the foot pad appear for me, but I never used it, so I don't know how you actually escape. Does it just teleport you to the Thieves' Den or Refuge?
According to the video I watched, you're supposed to walk up to the foot pad and the interact button will pop up, and you click it and they'll teleport you.
Okay.
That's what I watched on a YouTube video about it. So, but like I said, I didn't have the passive on my main. So, you were about to talk about the Fighters Guild?
Yeah. So the Fighters Guild has passives and skills you can use. Trap Beast is a common skill that's used in many Stam builds. I think my Magblade also has it. So, you know, it takes a while to level up. You don't have to focus on just anyone. Mages Guild has some skills. that like my magicka uses only just slot just for the because it gives you like a bonus just for slotting it in a light, but I don't actually, I don't actually use it for anything.
Yeah.
But
I'm on my battlegrounds build right now, so I don't have it on my skill tree, but I was using it.
So making gold, we talked about how stuff can be expensive. Horses used to be expensive until they gave you a free one. If you want to buy anything in game, it all requires gold. And it is harder in the beginning to get gold because, you'll do questing, but the amount of gold you get from questing scales with your level, so you might get pennies initially. So aside from questing, I mean, obviously you can go thieving. I'm a huge proponent of that. I have a guide that is up on our Discord. And you can also go fishing. You can you can sell the unfilleted fish on a guild trader. Don't vendor it. This is important because if you vendor the fish, it's worth maybe 3 gold each. But if you list it on a guild trader, you're looking at minimum 30 gold. Some of the fish, I don't know why, might be worth 90 gold. And you don't want to fillet it. But if you do, then what you're looking for, because you're not trying to sell fish, what you're actually trying to sell is a perfect roe, which is used in certain foods, and that's worth around 11k. So fishing can actually be very lucrative. And like I was saying with thieving, you don't even have to put any points into thieving. As a newbie starting out, if you're stealing just white treasures, those are worth 40 gold each. So without putting any points into thieving, if you get those and then you go to an outlaw refuge and sell those, you made at minimum 2 grand that day because you can sell 50 items, at level 1 without having put in extra points into the trafficker, which will then, allow you to sell 110 items at just 1 point. So at minimum, you just made 2,000 gold. If you don't get caught, that's the important thing. You don't want to get caught stealing because then you have to pay that back and then you just lost money instead of making it.
You can also.
But at minimum.
You can also like if you have a high bounty, you can always switch to a different character and time will take care of the bounty.
Yeah, it will continue to go down even when you're not locked in, so that's good.
I just had to add that in there.
So yeah, even somebody who has no interest in thieving or becoming a professional thief, you can make at least 2k a day off of that. And another thing about for somebody who's literally just starting out is I would not waste any time crafting gear because you level quickly. You'll have experience scrolls, you'll be grouped up, you'll be doing like really easy stuff. You level quickly, and then you out-level your gear, and it becomes less useful the further from that level's gear that you get as you out-level it. So this really, I think it's just best to use dropped gear. And while you're leveling up, I wouldn't say it's that important even to use full sets. It's not until you get to CP 160 that gear really becomes important because CP 160 is the gear max. There is nothing beyond that. So at that point is when you'll want to craft gear if that's what you want to use, or farm for dropped gear from dungeons and trials. And if you happen to have 2 characters and one of them is at the CP 160 level, you can even use them to farm for gear for your smaller character. So that way, as soon as they hit 160, whatever, 160 plus, then they can immediately go into their big girl clothes. Otherwise, it's not worth it to craft gear at a lower level. It's not worth the time or the mats or the money if you happen to do that. So don't bother. And so that's all for like day one kind of stuff. So next we're going to go into things for people who maybe playing a little longer, who decided they actually like the game and they want to continue to play this. They're at, they've been here a week or something. So first we're going to talk about levels. The game initially starts out, there's like a base of 50 levels for your character. And it is during that time that it's really a good idea for you to learn your class, learn how to play your class, unlock different skills, and, learn what they do and how to use them and when. Because then you'll get into CP, which is champion points, and then you start leveling all over again. You'll be stronger at like CP1 than you were at level 1, but it's a new leveling system. And so you'll go from CP1 to 160, which is where the gear stops changing and you can get good gear, and then you'll just keep leveling. Right now, ZOS has the soft cap at 810. I'm at 910, my CP level, because you can continue to level beyond whatever the cap is whenever you hit it, but you won't be able to use any more CP points, which, like if you look at what Miko has up, they include different perks that will help you, like what's Ensnare do? I mean, you have one that gives you more crafting inspiration if you're into crafting. Do you have another that, you can, it's got stuff for bashing? I know in the red one, there's some PvP uses on those. Like, you can res somebody faster.
Yeah.
I guess that's useful in trials too. Yeah, or give them, some of their resources back when you res them. You'll have you'll be able to do all kinds of stuff like that. So you'll put points into like these 4 below, usually following a build, and it will unlock different stuff at the top, different perks that you will get. So at this time, with the soft cap being 810, you can only put 810 into your character, and it's divided up by 3. So you have, what's 810 divided by 3? You have a third of that to use in the blue, a third of that to use in the red, and a third to use in the green.
270.
Okay.
Because it says for me, I've earned out of the blue 262 out of 270, and my CP is 788 right now.
The different ways that people would normally level, they might go dolmen or geyser farming. You can do daily quests because, again, the gold scales with your level. You can do a random dungeon because that will give you an XP boost using the dungeon finder. When you become level 45, you'll be able to start doing pledges, which you'll be able to level your undaunted skill line that way. And also, obviously, if you just run dungeons for a while, you'll get a lot of XP from that. I know people pay for Skyreach carries. You can do daily quests like doing your writs, going to Cyrodiil because there are daily quests there too. I think like in Somerset and in Vardenfell there are daily world boss and delve quests.
In all the DLC zones, there's dailies. Hrothgar, Somerset, Morrowind, Murkmire, Hughesbane, Gold Coast. And usually when you go to those, you can, in zone chat, someone will be like, press X for this quest. And so you don't have to pick them up yourself. Well, you gotta do like the first quest to get the dailies, but after that you can join groups and they'll share them with you.
Yeah, because you can, like in Gold Coast, I don't know about everywhere else. There are 4 possible dailies, but you can only pick up 2.
Yeah.
And so, people will group up and share them with each other so that way you can do them all. I find it easier to do that in Gold Coast, but I know in Somerset there are 2 to 3. One of them is quest locked. So 2 to 3 places where you can get dailies, and then if you group up with people, you can farm them. You'll grab a daily, share it with your group. You all do it, turn it in, and then somebody else in their group will pick it up if they have the ability, and you'll just do that as long as somebody is able to pick stuff up. But during the time that you are leveling, uh, I really recommend taking the time to enjoy the game because it is pretty cool. And you don't want to speed through to the end game because, not only have I seen people burn out pretty fast when they do that, a lot of times they don't really understand how to play their characters effectively if they're trying to do group content because they never learned how to use, certain skills. They just was trying to unlock it because they felt like that was the gate that they need to get through something. I don't know. But take the time to enjoy the game because there are a lot of cool quests. There's a lot of cool loot you can pick up, and it's just a pretty looking game in the first place. So
Yeah, and if you're not having fun, it's not a game worth playing. Right? And you can
right.
definitely have a lot of fun in ESO. There's plenty of stuff you can do.
hmm
But
I've seen that there's a lot of confusion about like what order to play the game, and it's not helped by the fact that ZOS released the base game, and then they've released DLCs that some of them are before the base game and some of them are after. So, from what I can tell, the storyline of the game starts in Morrowind, or at least during the tutorial, if that's the version of the game that you have. Then you go back to the base game, you want to go to your faction starting zone, and go through your whole faction, and then you'll have Cadwell, Silver, and Gold, which involves going through the other 2 factions and completing those. And then it looks to be Orsinium, because after you complete your faction, you get an invitation to go to Orsinium or something. And then you can finish Morrowind if you didn't already. And then it's Clockwork City, because there are events that happen there that get mentioned in Somerset. And then apparently, I don't know if Murkmire actually has a place in the storyline or if it's just last, but that's where the story appears to be. And then where your character actually starts depends on what version of the game you have. Like the base game currently comes with Morrowind, so you'll start there. But if you bought the base game years ago and you haven't upgraded, then you're going to start in your faction starting zone. Actually, you're going to start in Cold Harbor. You woke up in Cold Harbor and you don't have a soul, and then you'll get kicked to your faction zone. And then if you have the Somerset upgrade, that's where you start. I assume the same is going to happen for Elsewhere when that releases later this month.
most likely, yeah. Because it's a
There'll
chapter.
probably be a new tutorial.
Wait, is Elsewhere going to be a chapter?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, they'll probably have a new starting zone when it comes out.
I'm kind of curious about where the storyline for that picks up because I did not pre-order.
Yeah, neither did I. I wanted to, but yeah, it's life.
Yeah. So we're talking about leveling. It's a good idea to unlock your guild skill lines before you go out and you do questing, because like I mentioned with the fighter skill, there are skills that you're gonna want to use, but you can't actually can't even begin to level your fighter's guild until you've unlocked it in your starting zone by doing the quest that you gotta do to join the fighter's guild and to join the mage's
Yeah.
guild.
Like if you start in Somerset, for example, uh, you just walk in a Shimmering. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's the main city there, not Eleanor, the other one. And just right around the corner when you walk in, there's the Mages Guild, and then right around the corner from that is the Fighters Guild. You just gotta accept their quest, be like, I want to join, and then that's what unlocks your skill line, and then you can do the
Yeah,
skills. Yeah.
but you can also only level fighter's guild and not the skills within it, but the actual fighter's guild and mage's guild. You can only level those by doing the quests
Yeah.
that are associated with them. Or in the case of the Mages Guild, you can also pick up lore books, the purple ones that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Uh, there's two types of books. There's two types of lore books. There's the main one which that gives you the level, and then there's that edict memory, and you can get that after you do the mage's quest skill. You get a thing where it saves all the books you've ever picked up, and you can go back and reread them if you wanted to.
Yep.
Cause sometimes you're just going through an area picking up the books. Like we're in dungeons or whatever. You just want to pick up the books real quick. But if you want to actually read them, you can.
Yeah. So gaining XP, obviously you do that, you know, by crafting, by questing, by using the skill. But you'll gain more XP if you group up with people to a certain extent. So if you're doing activities like dolmen farming, normally that's a ton of people that are doing that, right?
Yeah.
You can follow the group because Alakir and Shadowfen both have um, like dolmen trains going on. You can follow the group, but you don't want to actually be grouped up with them because if you join a group, you'll get an XP boost just for being grouped up. But the overall XP that you gain gets split up amongst all group members.
So if there's like 20 group members, you're barely getting anything.
So if you're gonna group up, like your best shot is to go with only one or two people. Best, you get the most XP just from grouping with one. And then obviously you can use experience scrolls, experience pots. If there's an event going on that gives you a memento to use for XP gains, you can use that as well.
Like the cake
But
or the pie or
yeah. And the mead for new life and the
Yeah.
cauldron. Yeah.
I forgot about
But
that.
scrolls and pots don't stack. You can't use both of them together, unfortunately. But you can use either of them with the memento.
So can you use the memento, a scroll, and a pot?
No, because the scroll and the pot will not.
Okay, so it's just the memento and one or the other. And of course you get if you have ESO plus, you get the 10% XP boost too.
Yeah, or if you decide not to do that and you do the Pledge of Mara, I forgot about that. That's a thing.
Yeah.
You can get married to another character, and as long as you're both wearing, I think it's a ring of Mara, then you also get an XP boost from that. But I don't know if it makes a difference if you're both stubbed. But yeah, those are the different ways that you can try to gain XP.
Well,
the ways that you accumulate it, rather.
I think the only way you can get the scroll of Mara is through the crown store, right?
Yeah, and you'll do a little ceremony, but you both have to actually be wearing.
Yeah. Oh, It's back up now.
Alright. That was... Alright. A quick little cat nap. And now you DC'd for real.
Yeah. I gotta log back in now.
Okay, well, I think we had talked all about XP before we got disconnected, so now I'm going to go into the different roles that people play. So ESO has you broken up into either DPS, healer, or tank. And it's not strictly necessary to have all of them present in a dungeon. Like you can go play the base dungeons, and whether it's norm or vet, you can usually get away with doing 3 or 4 DPS and not having a tank or not having a healer, as long as people have, self heals. But if you're doing the DLC dungeons, or those have a lot of into it, so in those cases, it's important. Like I had mentioned before, it's important that you know your class, you know your role, you know your skills. You can use the dungeon finder if you want to, if you want to do a dungeon. You can use that to port in, and it will require you to have one of those roles listed. If you go to the group menu, Miko's not online yet, but when he gets there, he can show you. The default keybind for the group menu is P.
Yeah, and years ago, well, I don't know exactly how long ago it was, but like a year ago, you used to be able to pick 2 roles, but now you can only pick 1.
Yeah, which is somewhat good, but it doesn't solve the problem that they were trying to solve, which is people lying about their roles, because the dungeon finder, if you use the dungeon finder to get into a dungeon, it will require there to be 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS in every group. You can port it in directly and skip all that.
Yeah, if you have
But
the people in your group already.
yeah, but with the by using the dungeon finder, you're required to have that game set up. I mean, you don't have. Yeah, there we go. So you can change your role. It's not good form to lie about your role when you're trying to get into it using the dungeon finder, because if you queue as a tank and you're not a tank and it's a DLC dungeon, you can really wreck your group because you're not not able to hold the boss, you're not able to hold the
And people get pissed.
people are relying on you. Yeah.
Like,
Same with the healer.
yeah, if it's a non-DLC dungeon and it's like Wayrest Sewers or Funko Grotto, like the easy ones, it doesn't matter as much. But when you do the DLC ones or the harder level ones, and especially that, you want every role to actually be that role.
Same with trials.
Definitely.
Trials are usually longer dungeons. So, alright, so DPS are obviously they're going to be the primary damage dealers. Ideally, they'll be doing this without running around like chickens with their heads cut off, because when you do that, you step out of the buffs and the healings that healers put down to help you. So ideally, you're not running around a lot. Okay. So yeah, DPS, primary damage dealers, not running around like chickens with their head cut off. Ideally, also not standing behind the tank, because the tank is actually trying to face the boss, so that way you don't get hit by stuff that's going to one-shot. The tank's job is to hold the boss, or maybe to hold the ads for the DPS, and he'll also give you buffs or debuffs on the enemies. And the healer is supposed to keep you guys alive, give you buffs and debuffs, and if everything is all good and nobody's in imminent danger of dying, they deal some damage. Points. There are different kinds of points in this game. There are attributes, there are skill points, there are champion points. The attributes raise your level of your max magicka, stamina, and health. I know it's tempting because I definitely made this mistake when I first started out, to spread your attribute points around, but that's actually not a good practice as it turns out. First, you will probably want to decide what you're going to be doing with your character. If it's going to be a mule, if it's going to be a crafting alt, then it probably doesn't matter where you put your attributes, if you even assign them at all. But if you're doing any kind of game content, then you'll most likely want to find a build to follow. And typically, you will put all of your points in either magicka or stamina. All of your attribute points, there are like 64 of them. As you put points into magicka, obviously it increases your max magicka, but it will also affect like your magicka recovery, your spell damage, your spell resistance. A lot of that is going to come from your gear though, but it does spill over a little bit. So, and you'll want to put most of it into one or the other. However, if you're finding, even after using food, after getting all of your food up, after using pots, because normally all of this stuff is what will make up the difference in your health. If you're still having some survivability issues, you can put a few attribute points into health, but it really shouldn't be more than 10. Everything else, if you're playing with a stamina tune, you need all of the stam that you can get. So you're gonna want to put all the points into that. If you're gonna be a magicka user, you gotta put all the points into magicka.
Well, this is also for PvE. Like for PvP, it's a little different. Like you can spread your attributes around. Well, not always, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't really PvP, and I certainly don't change my skills or any of that around because, I mean, that costs money to reset, and I don't want to spend money on it. I don't want to spend money on something I don't enjoy. So, like the builds differ between PvE, PvP. I'm not sure by how much, but at least for PvE, you're pretty much going to put all your attribute points into, one attribute. And you get those as you it's like one per level, and then a few of the levels will give you 2 or 3 points, I think it is, up until you get to level 50.
Hello, Sykes. Welcome to the stream. I don't know how to pronounce your name, by the way.
If you need to reset those, you can either use like a scroll that you got, the attribute scroll from the Level Up Advisor, or you can go to the shrine at your faction capital. It actually doesn't even have to be your faction. It could be any faction capital. In Wayrest, in Elden Root, and in Mournhold, and you can pay to reset them there.
Yeah, at the shrines.
You can also do that with skills and with morphs in the exact same place.
Yep.
So if you go to your skill page, if you decide, like we talked about crafting earlier, if you want to do crafting, you'll want to put points, obviously, into leveling up. Putting 10 to 10 of crafting and blacksmithing, but you'll also maybe want to put points into research. Doing points that way really makes a difference in your research. If you're going to, if you're going to research everything, you can. If you don't put points into it, I should say, it will take at minimum, I think, 128 days to research all 9 traits of just one item. And then, of course,
that's just one item.
Yeah, that's one item. That's not, all of completing all of it. It's just if there are 9 traits in the staff, it will take you 128 days without putting any points, without using any research scrolls, any of that. Search all 9. But, you know, if you put points into research, you can shorten the research time. You can, you have the ability to research more than one item. If you get subbed, that will also shorten the time that it takes to research. So by using skill points, you can the one item, all 9 traits, down to something like 64 to 78 days, I think, somewhere around there. And then when you're subbed, you get an additional 10% reduction on research times. So that 9th item, if you're subbed and you have all the points in the research, will take no longer than 28 days for all 9 traits. And then when you're done, because you don't need to keep those research points after you've maxed out all, you know, after you've researched all of the traits. You can get those 12 plus skill points back. You go to, you know, a shrine, pray, pay money, and get those points back. You should always invest in your racial passives. Otherwise, what's the point in you picking a particular race? It will help you with, if you're a Bosmer, you know, you'll get additional bonuses to using a bow. You'll also get, I don't know. When you fall, you get less fall damage when you fall as a Bosmer. It's like a 10% reduction. You know, you can do additional, you know, in your you'll gain more experience with mine. You'll level that faster, you'll pickpocket higher, faster, better, whatever. I like to call it strategic falling on my Bosmer. But your class and your armor passives, those would typically be maxed out as well. You know, if you're a Nightblade, you're going to want, I think there's a stealth. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think they're like stealth passives.
Well, there's the reduce the cost of sneak. And that kind of helps you steal and pickpocket and stuff.
Yeah, medium armor, I know you get like increased sneaking radius, detection radius, whatever. So you, and of course, I mean, if you're going to be an assassin, that's useful too. So, I mean, typically builds will advise you to use all of your armor and your class passives as well. The skills in the guild, like from Undaunted and from Fighter's Guild and all of that, that's going to vary based on what build you're using. If you're even what you actually intend to be using, what skills you actually intend to use, that all will vary based off of you, but racial passives and the armor class passives are pretty universally, you're going to use them all.
Yeah, and if you plan on doing any interactions with NPCs, which you will, you definitely want to get the Intimidating Presence passive from the Fighters Guild and the Persuasive Will from the Mages Guild. So even if you don't use the skills, get it just for that passive.
So when you talk to somebody, you don't have to bribe them to get them to give you Intimidate or just be very persuasive.
Yeah, because if you use Intimidate or Persuasive, it will cut down on the number of steps in your quest.
Like we mentioned before, skills only get leveled while they're slotted. So if you want to level a particular skill, it has to be slotted. And the skill line, of course, will only get leveled if you have any skills from that line slotted. And you'll get XP from killing with those skills or killing while on that skill bar. Or, I don't know if that made any sense. But you don't get XP from using it. Like there's a leeching skill for Night Blades. You know, you can steal health from the enemy. You don't get any XP from using that. But if you happen to kill, either while using that or it's on the same bar while he dies, you do get XP to level that particular skill. And if you're killing a boss and maybe that skill line or that skill is low, you want to make sure that you are on that bar when you make the kill, so that way it gets the XP boost. And then also if you're turning in a quest, make sure you're on. If you have something that needs to be leveled, make sure you are on that bar.
Oh, I didn't know that part. That's good to know. I didn't know that.
You need to know your skills. You need to be familiar with it. You need to understand how to use it and when to use it, especially if you're not going to follow a build. I mean, you don't have to, but a lot of people put in a lot of time into finding like the most optimal skills and gear and to get the highest output. So if end game and group content is your goal, you know, you either need to follow a build or you need to understand what to do.
And just because they have the numbers and stuff figured out, just because that works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because everyone has a different play style or different gameplay. So like, for me, for example, I have to use the skills in a different order than I would on a keyboard because I use a gamepad. So I have to switch up the order. And I don't actually follow a build, I'm just doing whatever because that's what I do.
My stand blade, because I main a stand blade, but she's a Bosmer, and they've been getting steadily nerfed over the years. So I have to be a vampire, which has required me to, you know, make adjustments for that. So, I mean, just understand what you're doing. Understand the choices that you're making. Also, a good thing to know, well, in line with what I was saying about understanding the skills, is I've seen a lot of times where DPS will slot a skill which is actually a taunt. And that's problematic in group contents because you are not the tank. And like we had said before, it's the tank's job to hold the boss or the ads. And if you hit them with that taunt, you just took attention away from the tank, and now the boss is focused.
Yeah.
It's not what you want.
Like, for example, if you're using an ice staff and you have that passive, then you're going to piss a lot of people off.
Yeah. Or if you use, I think it's from the one-hand skill line, puncture.
Yeah, the first
That
skill.
is a taunt.
Yep. So there's 3 taunts in the game. There's the one-handed one, the ice staff passive, and the
Inner fire.
Yeah, I think that's Fighters Guild.
I thought it was Undaunted. It's
Oh,
yeah, I think
yeah, it's
Undaunted.
Inner fire. Yep. So there's 3 taunts in the game. That's it.
And also, you should know that damage does not equal aggro, and vice versa. So if you're a tank, again, you're not focusing on doing damage.
Yeah.
Just because you do more damage than the DPS doesn't mean you're going to hold aggro if you don't have a taunt. And then, you know, just doing more damage doesn't mean you're going to pull the boss away from you, as long as the tank holds aggro. And if you're a DPS or a healer, somebody who's not the tank and who's slotting a taunt, you can wreck the group that way.
Well, the only time that there should be 2 people with taunts is during a trial when there's the tank and the off tank. And, and they can't interact with each other's enemies. Or it's like a weave. They have to like weave. I don't know if that word makes any sense in this that usage, but yeah.
And multiple people having taunts also can lead to over taunting, which is another problem. It's when you get taunts coming in from multiple directions within like 10 seconds, I think it is. And then, so if I'm the tank and I'm taunting, and then Miko decided he was going to use a skill that he didn't know was a taunt, and he hits the boss with that and steals aggro away from me. And then I try to get aggro back by taunting. The boss is going to ignore me, and he's going to run around destroying everybody.
Because I think that if you put one taunt, it lasts 15 seconds. And if you do another taunt within that 15 seconds, it cancels it out, right? Is that how it
It's
works?
not a problem if you're the only tank, because there's nobody to draw aggro from you.
Oh, okay.
But if you have somebody else who's taunting as well, that's when it becomes an issue.
Okay. When you use your skills, know what they do first.
Yeah. Make sure you read the tooltips and then ask questions if you're confused, because sometimes I feel like ZOS isn't that clear about what they mean.
That's one of the actual great reasons to join a guild, is because people figure stuff out and they like to share it, especially since if they couldn't figure it out for a while or something. Like,
Yeah.
For example, we're doing this stream.
We learned some lessons the hard way.
Yeah.
And champion points. We touched on that a little bit earlier. You know, if you're following a build, usually you don't actually wind up using all of your champion points. You'll probably have, if you're a Magicka build, you're probably going to have a lot of points left over in what is, I don't remember what the green is. You'll have a lot of green points left over, probably, and maybe. Yeah, but I don't remember like what the constellation name was. Anyway, is that the thief? I don't know.
Tower, lover, and the shadow. So I think that's under the thief, because each one of the sets is under a bigger one.
Yeah, the red is under warrior, and I believe blue is under mage.
Yeah. So yep, green is the thief's. Under the thief's influence, the lover gives you stamina and increases your generation. And the shadow grants you stamina and helps you elude your enemies. And the tower raises your stamina and more effective with spells and abilities. So yeah, since it's stam based, well, I'm a mage tuner and I got a lot of stuff in my stam.
I mean, I have stuff too, but the stuff that I don't need, as like my healer, it's not important for me. Actually, none of my tunes, I don't find it as important to be able to dodge roll hard, which is, I think there's one of the perks is a dodge roll cost reduction. I will put fewer points in there because, you know what is important for me? Being able to gather, harvest, being able to harvest mats faster. Being able to get better quality.
Yeah, it's tumbling.
Gear.
Tumbling reduces the cost of dodge roll.
Yeah, getting better gear from treasure chests or higher quality. What's merchant favored? I think getting more gold out of them too. So I will put fewer points into tumbling while still following a build. I'll put fewer points into tumbling so that way I can put them elsewhere. Reduce cost of repair. Oh my goodness, that is a huge one.
And then it's Fortune Seeker that increases the amount of gold you find in treasure chests and safe boxes by 50%. And then Treasure Hunter, it increases the quality of items. I don't have that one yet.
I mentioned that I main a Stam Blade, so I actually have to put more points into Elemental Defender than is normally called for because, she'll burn to a crisp if I'm not careful.
Oh yeah, because you're a vampire, right?
Yep. So, I think that'll be under red.
Does your Nightblade
Either red
have
or
this
blue.
one CP passive, Shadow Strike? You become invisible.
That's probably for PvP, because I've never seen anybody use that. But you never know. So try to find a balance that works for you. It is useful to follow a build for the CP because there's a lot of math involved in it. You get it does diminishing returns, so you'll get less of an increase the more points you put into a perk. And so they've already done the math. It's like, well, it's about at this point where it becomes less useful to continue to put points in there than you could put points elsewhere. Ooh. Cool fact about CP characters. If you have multiple characters, you really only have to get one of them. Well, once you get them to, CP level, you only ever have to play one of them ever again, if that's what you want to do. Because once they will level together once they hit CP. Every character will level by themselves when they're 50. But if, like, my main hit CP first, and eventually, after many months, I got around to leveling up my other characters, and as soon as they hit they hit 50, and then they became a CP level 2, and they immediately jumped to what my main was, which at that point was probably around 200, CP 200. They immediately jumped all that. So that's cool, first of all. So, what's awesome is you don't have to grind 800 CP levels on each individual toon, because that is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But
I like that fact.
They also share, one downside is that they share an enlightenment pool, which it's like an XP, so you'll be able to level like 4 times faster at CP level. But so it gives you enlightenment of 400k per day. So if you were crafting something and it normally only gives you like, when you were a lower level, it only gave you like 20 XP for that. When you're at CP and you're enlightened, it's going to give you 80, I think. Yeah, it'll give you 80 XP for that same thing. And so you get an enlightenment pool, it's 400k per day for a max of 4.8 million XP, which gets used by all of your CP characters. Now, if you don't really play a lot of them, and you don't play a whole lot, then you'll be virtually enlightened all the time. But you can blow through that pretty quickly. If you're playing on all of your characters, maybe you're doing dungeons, you're doing raids, you're doing trials on all of them, you can actually burn that down pretty quickly. And then when you're no longer enlightened, it is so slow to level. But your enlightenment will refill, you'll get another 400k every day at the same time when you first became CP, whatever time your first toon hit. That's when it will reset and you'll get another 400k. And what's also really cool is that even though you might have a lobby character who is not, obviously he's not CP, he can still use those same CP points that your other characters have earned on himself. So I could make a new character and, he might be level 10. And right now, I'm at max CP, so I can immediately put 810 points into my CP trees, and I will be so much stronger at level 10 than somebody who just started out and doesn't have any CP points, because I have those other bonuses that will, do more damage, that will reduce the cost and all of that. We've talked about guilds a lot today, because we are in our own guild. So player guilds, I know in WoW, player guilds are apparently character specific and you can only do one guild per character. But in ESO, the player guilds are account wide and you can be in up to 5 of them. So if you're planning on getting into trading, using guild traders to make money, you'll want to be in more than one trade guild. And there are a variety of other guilds. There'll be roleplay guilds, there's social guilds, there are PvP guilds, trial guilds,
Mixed.
yeah.
A guild that does a little of everything, kind of like us.
Yeah. So, there are all kinds of guilds, all kinds of interests. I had a friend who was in a fishing guild. She liked to fish. She also really liked to fish in general. So, a lot of people, apparently, there's an interest in that. And so there's a guild.
There's also housing guilds.
Oh, yes. I knew I was forgetting something. Yeah, there are a couple really big housing guilds that popped up after Homestead released a couple years ago. So if where there's an interest, there will probably be a guild. I actually today saw an advertisement for a furry guild. Not even joking.
Did you join it?
No. These guilds are advertised in different places. They might be advertised in Zone Chat. You might know somebody in a guild who invites you. They're also advertised outside of the game, like on Reddit or in Guildex. I have an ad up on Guildex, and I've gotten a lot of recruits that way. We have posted ads on Reddit, but I don't know if we've gotten anyone from there recently. And then there's an upcoming feature, which I believe is being released with Elsewhere, where you can. It's sort of like. It's a guild finder, similar to the dungeon finder. And you can search for guilds on it and apply to guilds. And, whoever has permission will accept your application and you can join that way too. So that'll be kind of cool, I think. We talked about master crafters a little bit earlier. Being a master crafter doesn't mean just getting that craft to level 50. Because like Miko showed you, his blacksmithing is at 50, but his actual crafting level is only at 1. He can only craft, like level 1, level 4 stuff using iron ingots.
Yeah, but I'm
Being a master
I'm not
crafter.
a crafter though, so. That's also another reason that you can have multiple characters. You can have one as just your crafter. My crafter is also my main, which I do trials and stuff on. But in order to do that on one character, you need shit tons of skill points. Like 300 plus. And that's what I have.
Yeah. Same. Yeah, my main is also my crafter. So being a master crafter isn't just getting them the craft to level 50. You also have to actually max the skill for that, so that way you can craft up to like CP 160 gear, food, pots, because there are different levels of solvents to use when crafting pots, different levels of food you can make for different, depending on where you are. One way to level your crafting, besides, just crafting and deconning stuff, is to do your writs every day. Because that will give you, if you do your writs and you're not maxed out, you get crafting XP, which is called inspiration. And then you can also get mats and recipes and gold, and even sometimes master writs from doing your writs. And master writs have a greater chance of dropping for the gear crafts, like blacksmithing, clothing, if you meet like these two sort of requirements, which are the more traits you have researched, which is another incentive to research every single trait you can, but also the more completed motif books that you know. And it has to be all 14 pages, not a single one.
Or,
so the
or
more
the
you know.
whole book on some occasions.
Yeah. But yeah, you have to know all of them. Some of them, like Imperial, only come in a full book. But, your Silken Ring comes in individual pages. If you learn all 14 of them, that increases your chance of getting a Master Writ.
Soul Shriven comes in a book.
Oh yeah, that one too. And then the ones from the Crown Store, you can buy as books.
Yep.
For provisioning, your chance of getting Master Writs increases with the more not only the more recipes, but primarily the more purple recipes, you know. It doesn't matter if it's a low-level recipe, because there are some purple recipes that make like level 30 food. It's purple, so the more purple ones you know, the greater chance of getting provisioning recipes, provisioning masterettes.
And the lower level purple ones are cheaper than the higher level ones at guild stores. So you
Yeah,
can buy tons of low level ones to get your numbers up. Well, there's only so many, but still.
yeah. With enchanting, it's you know, if you know most of the runes, uh, if you know all of them, great. 'Cause one of them you only get from like PvP, and it's the Hakaja. But if you know all of the others, you increase your chance of getting it. It's even better, of course, if you know Hakajo. Know all of your runes.
Yeah.
And then with alchemy, it's knowing all of the traits for all of the mats. The more you know, I mean, they've added new ones with the DLCs, right? But for the original mats like Columbine and Cornflower, if you learn all those traits, you'll increase your chance of getting alchemy
Did the
masterettes.
did the clam goal come out with Somerset, or was that already in there?
That was Somerset, Clam Gull, and Mother of Pearl. And then doing Master Writs, in addition to giving you gold, they also have this payment system called vouchers, which you can use to buy stuff from Rulis Halalu, who's a writ vendor. And he's at your faction capital. You can buy from him at any location, but you can only turn in at your faction capital. But he'll have stuff, the ebony motif, that is the only way to get it, is from buying it from him. There are combat dummies, well, the pieces for the combat dummies, recipes for that, recipes for like mythic, ethereal, ambrosia, or whatever, blueprints, gold blueprints for furnitures you can buy from him. Which a lot of people then in turn, either they use it or they turn around and sell it for gold. So there's a bit of an economy there. Now we mentioned transmuting earlier, which is, you know, retrading an item. Zos, not even sarcastically this time, but Zos in their infinite wisdom decided to make the game slightly less grindy by allowing us, with the advent of Clockwork City, to be able to change the trade of items that maybe we accidentally crafted it wrong, or just dropped items. This includes the monster sets from the dungeons.
Yeah, because before the transmuting thing, you would have to go through a dungeon like 5 times to get divines.
Yeah, and also the weight that you wanted. You cannot change the weights of gear yet. Well, I don't know if they ever plan to do that, and I don't think I want them to.
Probably not.
But, yeah. But at least you can change the trait, and it's amazing. It requires, like we mentioned before, you have to have the traits researched. And it has to be on that tune that you're using. I mean, you could drop an item in your bank and then retrade it on a different tune. It doesn't matter, because it's account bound. But that's the thing, is these become bound once you retrade it. You will not be able to sell it, if that is your goal. So you want to keep that in mind. You have to have the trait researched, but it doesn't use that trait stone. So sometimes you have people who have more stones than they know what to do with, because they don't need to change their gear. So what they might do is, if they have Nirnhone weapons, I mean, you could do it also with gear, but you get more of a return. If you have Nirnhone weapons already researched, you could craft an item in, you know, like level 1 item into a different trait.
Well,
Retrade it using the transmute stones.
they pulled a world boss.
Retrade it using the transmute stones into Nirnhone weapon and then decon it and try to get Nirnhone or Nirncracks and then sell that because that goes for about 11k. So that's our cool gold making trick. However, you are limited in the amount of transmute stones you can hold. So if you're not subbed, you can only hold 100 stones. But if you are subbed, you get double the space. You can hold 200 stones. Transmuting costs 50 stones. So you want to choose wisely. You want to make sure that if you're transmuting gear for your own personal use, make sure it's one that you actually need to transmute, and also transmute it to the right stone, right trait, obviously, because it's kind of annoying trying to grind up stones, because you might only get one from a dungeon, you know?
Yeah. But like with the transmute stones, you can only have 200 of them at a time, right? Like that.
Yeah, if you're subbed, you get 200. So
Yeah, then
if
you
you
just
have,
fucking have a bunch of geodes in your bank.
yeah, well, first of all, don't open the geodes if you're already full.
Yeah.
Second of all,
Wait, can you still open them and it just loses them?
yeah.
Oh, that's weird. I thought it would just like not let you open them. That's how it should be.
I think there is a dialogue that might say, because I've noticed this on like the gold ones. It's like, hey, because the gold ones can give you like up to 25. So if you're within 25 and say, hey, are you sure you want to open this? Because you might lose some. So there might be that, and then people ignore it, and then just still open anyway, and then lose the stones. It's like, don't do that. If you don't have anything that you need to retrate, or if if you plan on farming, so that way you don't have to use your transmute stones for something that trivial, then go ahead and, use it on transmuting to Nirnhone gear or Nirnhone weapons, and then try to get that stone back. We've mentioned a few different ways to make gold in this game. You can thieve, you can buy stuff from the voucher vendor and then try to resell those for gold. You can go fishing and sell either unfilleted fish or the perfect roe. You could also sell raw mats, although if your refine passive is maxed, then you can decon. We touched on that. Like you can decon those and get the upgrade tempers and try to sell those, because that will actually sell for more if you have it maxed. You can also play the market. The market in ESO is different. We don't have a central auction house. We have multiple market stalls that get rented out by guilds every week.
Some are more expensive than others.
Yeah, some locations are more expensive than others. A lot of people don't like this method, but it controls inflation. By acting as a gold sink, because otherwise gold will not be worth anything if there's no way to get rid of it from the game. So that's the logic behind having guild stalls, because it's a blind bid by the guilds every week, and you have to, again, bid every week. You don't get to keep it eternally.
Well, if there wasn't, like, if we had a black market in ESO, we probably wouldn't need the gold sink. What do you think?
But how would a black market function?
Scuba trade.
So
like seriously though, like there is a guild that they're slave traders. It's an RP guild. Like some of them are like the slave owners, some of them are like the Argonian slaves. It's weird.
Okay. So, like a downside with the downside that everybody complains about with having this guild trader set up is that you now have to go to every stall to look at their stuff if you want to see what they have. And it's especially frustrating if you have, if you're looking for something in particular. But what you could do is go to this you can go to that website and look for a specific item and then try to go to the stall where it says it's located. Keep in mind though, you're not the only person who's doing that.
Yeah.
So when you get there, you might not find it because somebody else bought it.
About a week ago, I was actually doing some recruiting, and someone messaged me, and I thought they were asking to join the guild, but that wasn't the case. They actually were like, "Oh, are you still selling those?" I think it was the Gull Clan, or no, it was the Pitch Bale, or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, in the guild store, and that was when we didn't have the trader at the time. And so, like, if you post in the guild store that doesn't have a trader, it still shows up on TTC. And you, so like the posts that don't have a guild trader link to it, and just have the users, you'd have to PM the user for it. And I just figured this out the other day because someone did it to me.
You know, I actually did that to someone else, although it wasn't until after I contacted him that he explained, yeah, we lost our trader. But yeah, I didn't really make that connection.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, is I posted them when we had a trader, then we didn't have a trader. I think that's what happened. Like, we can only get a trader when we can afford it because we're not a trading guild. So people do like the fact that we have a trader.
Yeah.
It's just a plus.
It is. I know a lot of people have been confused about how you even access the, guild stores and traders. You can access any guild store. Well, I should say you can access any public-facing guild store, by going directly to the kiosk that has the trader, and you just, you go up. You say you want to see the store. You got to make sure you hit R by default to search, because nothing actually shows up immediately when you open up unless you have the awesome guild store add-on. So you have to hit R to do a search, and then you'll actually see the items that are in the store. If you want to access your guild store, you can either go to directly to the trader, or you can go to a banker, not your assistant, but it has to be one of the game bankers in town. And then, instead of selecting bank, you can go to the guild bank, or you can go to guild store. If you're in multiple guilds and they all have stores, then you're going to want to obviously make sure you're in the right, you're going to the guild that you want. And you can search for items that way if you want, or you can list items from there. You can only list 30 different items. There are 30 slots. If you wanted, you could list like one pitch pile on all 30 and that will count. Or you can stack it and sell a stack of 30 pitch pile on just one slot. However you want to do that. But it would probably be cheaper to do it as a stack, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, like with the aloes, for example, like when I go to a store, like, you're not gonna sell a whole stack of aloes, or that's just too much.
Yeah, you're not gonna sell a stack of 200 of them. No.
Usually I see either 1, 2, 5, or 10. One time I
you
saw
want to sell
20,
those in smaller stacks.
Yeah, one time I saw 20, but that was like 200 something K or something. I don't remember it exactly, but I didn't buy it. It was actually it was a good deal. It's just I didn't have the whole amount on hand at the time.
Yeah, you want to sell things like that, like alloy and mastic and other valuable items. Perfect robe. You want to sell those in smaller stacks because in the search it's it's filtered by price. So people are going to buy the first thing that they see because it's going to be looking at overall price rather than price per item, I think. if they sell a stack. So you're going to want, the smaller the stack is with a good price, the faster it's going to sell than a large stack. Speaking, oh yeah, and before we move on, you can, you know, there are add-ons that are designed to help you with the trading game. You want to make sure you're pricing items appropriately before you list them, because, you know, the etheric cipher that dropped during this event, those are pretty damn valuable. They're worth like 1.5 million, but if you don't know any better, how much are you going to sell it for? The game defaults all listings to 27 gold, so if you don't know what you're doing, you'll probably try to sell it for 27 gold. Not only does the guild lose out on taxes, because the minimum that we're going to get taxes on is an item sold for 30 gold, but also, so the guild loses out on taxes and you just got ripped off, because you could have been rich! So price items appropriately. You can do this by asking in guild chat, ask your guildies for a price check. There are also add-ons like TTC, Tamuel Trade Center, Master Merchant. There are a few other ones, but those are the two most common.
You could technically also ask in zone chat, but know that they can edit the price and try to trick you. So it's always better to ask in a guild chat. And multiple people will probably post the same thing.
Yeah. Speaking of money, teleporting doesn't have to cost you a dime. You can do it for free. Don't open up your map and click on a way shrine, because that is how you get charged. What you could do is just, well, one option is to go to somebody's house, and then you'll,
or your own.
Go to someone's house or your own house, and then walk out the front door. That will put you into the same zone in the same area by where that house is, as long as it's an owned house. Doing this in a preview doesn't work. Or you can port to somebody else.
So when you go to your house, you don't even pet your pets and be like, I'll be back sometime.
I don't think my pets miss me.
Well, you don't feed them, so.
Or you could go to the guild roster, right-click on someone's name, and then select Travel to Player. This will take you to the closest way shrine to where they are located. Or, if they're in a delve, dungeon, or trial, it'll take you there, unless the instance is full. Because a dungeon can only hold 4 people, a trial can only hold 12. So, it'll take you over where they are. The way you get to somebody's house, since we were talking about teleporting, if it's their primary home, you can go to their guild roster or go to your friends list if they're there. Right-click on their name and then select Visit Primary Residence. And none of those ways of traveling cost you anything. And if you were teleporting to a person, and like I said, it takes you to that way shrine, and then you can just click on the way shrine and then go where you want to go. It's a bit longer, but it's free.
And to add to that, it's when you're in dungeons, and let's say the exit is in the beginning, just go to your group page and teleport to anybody. And when you do that, you'll end up at that blue glowy thing right next to the front door. Just don't go through the portal, or else you'll go back to the end. Go out the back, go out the door, not the portal. And when you go out the door, that's also, when you teleport like that, that's also free.
Yep. There are a variety of add-ons in this game from, many different uses. A lot of them are designed to improve the quality of life of players, and it's actually even encouraged by ZOS to use add-ons. They're not going to take responsibility if your add-on is screwing up, but they do encourage you to use them. I mentioned for trade, the most popular ones are MM and TTC. There are others like Sky Shards, lore books, anything by Votan. You got combat metrics. For housing, the popular one is essential housing tools.
One of my
These add-ons.
one of my favorite add-ons. It's called No Accidental Stealing. So like, let's say you go up to something, and you try to pick it up, but it's a stolen good, and there's a guard right there. You don't want to get that bounty. So when you go up to something and it's stolen, you would either have to be in stealth and not detected, or press a hotkey and then press it. It helps you not get accidental bounties.
See, my favorite use for that particular add-on is because I was tired of going up to a blacksmithing station to try to use the freaking station, and then accidentally grabbing the sword that's in the freaking station instead of... Yeah. And then, of course, getting a bounty. So that was the reason why I started using that add-on.
It's the same at the Varden, the bank at Vivek City. There's a pile of coins right there. And if you're aiming right, and sometimes you'll accidentally click on that instead of the banker.
So very useful. We have a lot of other add-ons listed in the add-ons channel on Discord, so you can check out. You can check it out. I've got it all pinned with the description of what they do, so you don't have to search very hard. And these are all recommended by, your guildies. So, it's a variety of things that they do. They can change your UI. It can help you call out game mechanics. It can help you analyze your fightings and see where you need to improve. It can mark treasure maps and surveys and harvest nodes and treasure chests on your map. I mentioned one for decorating. So there's a lot that you can do with the use of add-ons. You can either download them manually at ESOUI.com, or you can use Minion. If you do it manually, like I prefer to do, then you also have to follow the authors on that website and make sure you keep up to date with the releases, the updates that they release, and then update your own folders.
I do something similar. What I do is I download everything manually. And then I have Minion, and I just click update. So it updates everything automatically. I don't add it through Minion, but I do the updates through Minion. But I like adding the original file manually because the search function on the website is much better than it is on Minion. So I can find stuff a lot better on the website.
I've heard that too. eFood in the game. I cannot tell you how many people I've come across that did not use food. And they're doing a dungeon, we're doing group content and you're not using food. There's no reason to not use food, because all it does is help you. If you can't make it yourself because you opted not to level provisioning and you can't afford to buy it from somebody, in the very least, use the food that you pick up. They don't have the best stats, but it's better than nothing. And unless it's otherwise stated, food and drink don't stack. You can't, you can't consume both of them and then get these stats from both. It's only going to be from the last one that you consumed.
Well, you said unless otherwise stated. Are there any that are stated that you can stack?
It will. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it will tell you on the food that it can be stacked with something else. But you can't do 2 drinks. It's going to be a drink and a food.
Yeah, like for 4 different tunes. Some are stab, some are mage. Well, one is mage, the other one's a stab. I just used the long fin pasty one.
I think it's gold. The one that does stack, I think they're gold.
Oh. Well, that kind of makes sense, because, perfect rolls are fucking expensive.
Yeah. You don't have to eat it like when you're out harvesting, although if you have a survivability issue and you run into wildlife, it might be a good idea. But if you're doing group content, absolutely eat food. Also, if you're going into Cyrodiil, because that's a place where you're going to get killed a lot.
Yeah, it just adds to your sustain, helps you, yeah, helps you live better.
Yep.
And then you can use pots for either health recovery or critical or crit pots that help raises your crit, or damage pots that raises your damage, etc.
Yeah, which Mother's Potent Brew is and Dubious Camorin both sell for pretty well. The Dubious Camorin recipe, I noticed, goes for about 20k. Actually, between 20 and 30k. Longfin pasty recipe still goes for above 20k.
Yeah. I think I bought my recipe for like 18 or 19.
I didn't buy it.
Well,
I just found it.
I bought it, and then like 2 weeks later, I won it in a raffle.
Nice. Yeah, I've never bought Longfin pasty. I've always found it. I used it the first time, and then I have sold multiple recipes because I do find them a lot, and they all go for 20k plus. You can, if you want to figure out what your DPS is, you want to practice your rotation, you can always use a combat dummy. The guild hall has them, so you don't necessarily have to buy it yourself, as a lot of players will have it. And you'll just go up to a dummy and you'll go through your rotation, and you need to work to kill it. You don't want to just fight it for a few seconds. You need to actually try to kill it. It will respawn. It's okay. I was a little worried the first time. I thought it was a one-time use only, but no, they respawn. Thank goodness. But after you kill it, the basic stats will get printed out to your chat as a system message. Tell you how fast you killed it and how much damage you did per second. If you want more in-depth detail, you need an add-on like Combat Metrics, which you access by assigning a keybind. Your food, your pots, your gear, your CP, your attributes, your passives, the Mundus Stone. If somebody is, providing you outside buffs and debuffs, all of that goes into determining what your DPS level is. The main thing you have to remember is that light and heavy attacks have their place. You want to use both of them, but heavy attacks are typically used to replenish resources, and they take longer to cast, in which case you'll be relying more on synergies from your healer and from pots. You want to weave light attacks in between each skill attack. So this is what your rotation is supposed to be. Light attack, skill, light attack, skill. And if you find, like I have this trouble a lot too, even now, but if you find like your light attacks aren't going off, then you probably need to slow down and actually give your light attack a chance to land and then hit a skill. So you don't want to be button mashing, because apparently that does not work.
Well, you can do animation canceling, but
yeah, I don't know how to do that.
What you do is you press the light attack and wait until it's almost down, then press the skill, and then right as the skill's going off, press another light attack, and it'll cancel out the animation of the skill, but it'll still hit, and then you'll do the light attack.
Any builds that you choose to follow, they typically recommend a few different optimal sets. If you want to go your own way and not follow a build, that's cool, you do you. But the thing that you should remember is you really ought to be wearing completed sets. And you want to arrange them in such a way that you will have 100% uptime on all of your sets. So normally you'll be wearing a monster set, which is your head and shoulders. Then you also have your weapons, your jewelry, and the other 5 gear pieces to make up the set bonus. Normally it's a 5-piece set bonus. So your monster set, that's 2-piece. That's right there. Two-hand weapons fortunately count as 2 pieces,
Yeah.
so you don't lose out.
Yeah, now
if
it
you're
does.
Yeah, it didn't used to, but it does now.
Yeah.
So like two-hand weapons, staffs, battle axe, the others. Those count as 2 pieces now. And then you also have some sets, like willpower and endurance. I think those are only jewelry pieces. No, I think I have a restoration staff of jewelry of willpower. But you know what? You only need like 3 pieces to complete that set, and so people normally use that for like their jewelry. So then it's just a matter of balancing the rest of your clothes as well as your weapons to make up, to get 100% uptime on all 3 sets, or 2 if you're not using different, jewelry pieces. What is, it's a really good idea if you have the Undaunted Metal passive, because that will actually grant you a bonus to your resources. So what people normally do is they'll mix up their gear weights, and they'll go 5-1-1. And what that means is that 5 pieces of whatever fits your skill or role. So tanks will normally wear heavy gear. Stamina can wear medium, and Magicka users will wear light. So the 5 pieces are going to be, that particular piece. And then you have 1 each in the other 2 weights. If you're a stamina mag user, the heaviest pieces are going to have to go on either your head, chest, or your legs. Because those are the biggest pieces. As far as ZOS is concerned, the way that they have it coded in, those are the biggest pieces, and they will give you the full stats from the traits and the enchants. Which, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, if you've tried enchanting items yourself, you'll make the glyph, right? And it'll give you whatever the stat is.
This is
but when you go to enchant,
up to. Not that.
So when you go into an enchanted item, sometimes you'll see that the stat went down from what it said before you enchanted an item. This is because of what piece you enchanted. So if you put it on head, chest, or legs, you'll get the full stats. But if you're going to put it on shoulders or waist, then you'll get smaller stats from that. Or your gloves, the hands, you'll get smaller stats. So you want to put the biggest stat items on the big, has coded to be big items. So if you put your heavy piece as your head, chest, or legs, then you're going to get even more armor than you would if you put only a light piece on one of those slots. And enchanting, like I mentioned about, the stats on the different pieces, one thing that's also kind of cool is your enchantment quality, green, purple, blue, doesn't have to match the same quality as your gear. So if you put, if your gear is blue, you can put a purple enchant on it. Now, it's only going to have the stats appropriate for blue because your gear is blue. But if you upgrade your gear to purple, your glyph was already purple.
Yeah.
So it's going to now use it's going to use the full stats that we had already mentioned.
So if you use a blue glyph on a blue armor and then you upgrade the blue armor to purple, do the stats for the glyph stay the same?
If it was a purple glyph on it to begin with.
Oh.
Now, yeah, now if you had the purple glyph on a blue gear, and then you decide to upgrade that gear to gold, unfortunately, you're only going to have stats for a purple glyph. There's a lot of info, but I tried to keep it to only the basic stuff.
Yeah. And you hear that, people, right? Like, we already have a few classes already. They're available both on our YouTube and on my stream. We're gonna have more. Definitely gonna have more.
If you have ideas for other classes that you would like to see, let me know in game or in Discord. Because I mean, I only have so many ideas,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Maybe some of my ideas people don't want necessarily, but if there are other things that you want to see, maybe we could do that too. So I think that'll be all for tonight. Take care, have fun, and I hope that this has helped you in some way.